toxic. I am not overly sensitive. I am not overly aggressive. I'm exactly who I should be.
Welcome to Masculinity Now with Arabella Tornau. A big welcome to all of you. I am your host, Arabella Tornau. I'm a therapist, guide, and energy worker who is constantly evolving with the ever-changing needs of life. Please feel free to listen to my first episode to get to know more about me and my path, as well as my biggest intention for this podcast. I am very excited to introduce you to my guest, Isaac Abeyta, on today's episode of Masculinity Now. Isaac has served in the US Army for nearly 8 years. He's a father and a husband and has a fascinating and emotional background to share. He is on his journey of unlocking and decoding his deepest emotions and rediscovering the power of the heart, balancing the masculine and the feminine from within. He's also one of the powerful voices you will hear in the podcast trailer. We will talk about what masculinity means to him through the lens of his past experiences, what triggers led him to the unfolding of his soul, the importance of finding purpose in a man's life, what tools you can use to release past trauma, pain, feelings of rejection, and abandonment. We will also highlight the importance of maintaining a solid coherence of your heart and mind. I also invited him because he represents the bridge between the so-called material world and the spiritual world. There is no either or. When we stop resisting and denying our authentic nature, which is a damn challenging but worthwhile process, we can change the world. It all starts within. And Isaac will share his journey and reflections with us today. That being said, welcome, Isaac.
Yes.
Hey.
Love that. Yes, it's so good. I'm so happy to be here. I'm honored to be a guest on your show. I've been looking forward to this talk for a while. So
thank you so much. Me too. And I know we just discussed a little bit earlier, like how we met and how impactful it was. And I kind of feel I want to start before we really go deeper, because I know it's it's super easy with us to go really deep, really fast. I just feel like I just want to go a little bit like where we met, how we met, and also from this place, I want to understand what really shifted in your life.
I don't even know where to start. That was, it was 2 months ago. It feels like a year.
Yeah.
And last week at the same time. Like it's a weird thing. So it was Music and Sky Festival, and it just worked out so beautifully. It was such a divine time for me. I'm from Wyoming, and this is in California. That's worlds apart, culturally, from everything I grew up with. And we'll get into that later, like what got me to where a guy that grew up on a small farm in Wyoming would end up with like some amazing spiritually awake, like all kinds of masters of like amazing healing methods and spiritual awakening processes and all this knowledge that's just being beamed into our realm. That was magical. And then, the breathwork session, I don't know where to begin. There were so many things that led to that moment. But when I really met you was after the first time, or no, this was the second time that during that festival that I had done something called holotropic breathwork, which is just another thing that completely opened me up and shifted some big things in me. So there's just this amazing nexus of all these amazing new experiences and the new people that I met, and just out in the desert. Well, not really a desert. It was a pistachio orchard, I guess.
Oh, I like this word.
Yeah, it was a magical a magical place. So grateful for that journey, and for meeting you there, and just everything that's been happening since. It's been quite a trip.
Well, I can just to get more clarification. So I met you through Yerasimos. So basically, he told me that he has a client, like a body worker. Like you came to him as like a client.
Yeah.
And I was basically also meeting him because my friend was listening to his podcast and told me, well, he's living here and there, and why you just don't reach out to him, to get in contact with him. And I was like, yeah, why not? And so that was so interesting because this is how my path with him crossed. This is how I got introduced to Music and Sky, because he's one of the speaker there. And then he told me when I met him about you, but I did not know that it was you. So one night we were all talking, and I think I was talking with Alec and Josh, and then you were sitting next to us, and I was like, who is this man actually? And your energy was just so pure and so authentic, and just so beautiful. And then we started to talk, and then we had this session with the breathwork session, and then I feel like a really deep layer from both of us just revealed itself, and we were just really talking very quick and very authentic and pure about your past and also your experiences.
Yeah, and then just really deep at the heart level right away. It was powerful. It was profound for me. And a huge shout out to Yerasimos, man. I love that guy. I reached out to him, and I was going through marital troubles and stuff, and when I reached out to him, I was actually thinking that I was in the process of getting divorced. And I'm completely open with all this stuff. There's no shame in this, because I feel like this is such a beautiful way, challenging way, but also if you know my astrological chart or my human design, this is sometimes the difficulties push me into some of the most profound awakenings in my life. So that I feel like Yerasimos was such a, I don't know, just like a, I can't even describe it. I just had to go talk to him.
Yeah.
The second I heard him and his wife Sophie on Alpha Vedic or Alpha Cast talking about human design and body work, I wanted, something inside me was like, do the body work, see if he still does clients.
Yeah.
And then I reached out to him. And for people that aren't familiar with this, because the body work is kind of a big term, it has a lot of things in it, including massage therapy and all these other things. And I don't even know really how else to fully describe what he does, but it involves Chinese meridian therapy, large muscle groups, and he literally walks on the backs of your legs, on your calves, on your arms, even on my shoulders. He's walking on my back as I'm doing this weird pose. And at the same time, he's such a gifted guy with seeing into you and drawing and asking you to go deeper into yourself and to be more honest and be super real. And he's a guy that'll definitely call you on your bullshit if you put it out there, and it'll help you see it and kind of in a safe place where you don't feel super judged. He's just real. He's just a real guy. And he invited me to come to Music in the Sky. And I had thought about going before that, but was kind of forgot about it. But when I reached out to him to do this body work whenever he was available, it just so happened to be the week right before Music in Sky. So it just timed out to where I could, I drove out there from Wyoming, did 5 days with him, and then a day break in between to kind of recuperate, because body work is rough. it can be very painful, like physically and emotionally. Especially doing 5 days with 2 sessions a day, like it was intense.
Yeah.
And so I had a day break. I went and hung out with my buddy. He goes by Kung Fu Bear. He's a good friend in LA, and hung out with him, and then went out, kind of camped on the beach, and then headed straight over to Music and Sky, where I had no idea what I was in for, but it was just such a blessing. Like, completely opened me up to so many different things, and like synchronicities every day. Talking with people like you and others for hours and hours every single day was just like meeting old friends for the first time. They called it the soul family gathering, and I can see why, because it felt like our soul family. Like we were like, I don't know if there's something where we all knew each other in a past life. We all have this connection. We get together and just have this amazing time. So super grateful for that.
Was it your first time that you experienced like body work or something, I would say like spiritual, for yourself?
At that level, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I've been a spiritual guy my whole life. As a little kid, I grew up Christian and stuff, but always felt like a kind of a deeper connection to things, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of went my own path. But that was the first time that I'd ever, I guess a way I would describe it, I feel like saying like it's the first time that I sought outside activation of something from the outside to come and to help me with my soul,
Mm-hmm.
to come and help me work and focus, and so the body work, the deep tissue stuff, the breath work, the introspection. I've done other things that weren't physical that were helping me along this road. So it's kind of a trail of smaller things. I've had human design readings and astrology readings.
Beautiful.
That was all super new to me in the past year. Like all of this stuff. If you knew my past, you'd be like, how the heck? I'm like this military dude that's like, former oil field worker, builder, like handyman guy, and I'm like, really getting interested in astrology, because I'm like, there's something here. So that all was part of it. Talking to Yerasimos about human design and all that was it was integral. And then that naturally fed into, I know that you're aware of human design. I don't know how much you use it, but it's
I use it. I use human design. I'm sorry, but I use human design astrology because I personally believe that when we understand how we work and when we understand how we are wired, we
Mm-hmm.
understand ourselves in such a matter that no one else can actually understand us, because we have our own landscape card, basically. So, and I'm really interested in, because for me, I always have trouble with the question, are you spiritual? Because in the end of the day, we are all spiritual beings, it's kind of like religion is man-made, and spirituality we are all born with.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I'm curious and I'm fascinated about how do we become the people who we become? What shapes us? What are our past experiences? And what actually have you been through that you showed up in the end of the day and to be open to have a body work session?
Mm-hmm. Well, like my wife would say, it's astrology. That's it, open and close. And I'm seeing that now. She's been right about a lot. She'll hearing me say that, because you can see all of this stuff in my chart, and the more skilled and talented the person reading it can see all this stuff.
Yeah.
But for those that don't you can't see it, and it would take way too long to describe all of it through that lens. But it is highly specific, and it reads quite like a storybook almost opened up. But I think one of the biggest things for me was I grew up in a spiritual family, or Christian family, that we didn't have a lot of dogma. We were kind of, my mother grew up Baptist in North Carolina. My father grew up Catholic out of New Mexico. And both of them had kind of been pushed out of their traditional religious settings. My dad was excommunicated from Catholicism because he got remarried. And in their type of Catholicism, that was, highly looked down upon. And my mother, I don't know why, but she didn't identify more with the Baptist or denominations. It was non-denominational, but she's always been this bright, shining, like loving, positive, like praying all the time, reading the Bible all the time, just a very faithful but spiritually like just an overcoming person. I would call her an overcomer. And really inspired all of us, the whole family. She's been like the glue, like women often are in a family. The wife, the mother is like the glue that holds everyone together. And so just really looking back now, I just feel like it's the heart of everything. It's she was connected to her heart and did what she loved and enjoyed, which was take care of us. I have 3 older brothers and an older sister, and she cared for us. She had a garden. Like I said, I grew up on a small farm, and that was like a natural extension of the spirituality was nature. So being in the garden, having animals, caring for them, like just really looking at things and appreciating them. Like I think that's part of my story too, is my sensitivity. I was, the youngest of 3 boys, and I'm the most sensitive out of all of them. I don't cry all the time and stuff, but I used to when I was a lot littler. But I would go out in nature in the garden and spend a lot of time by myself. But being connected to nature and not having a lot of safety nets everywhere, where I felt like going and doing, I would just go and do that. Like I think that's a big part of this curiosity and discovery that led me to doing body work and stuff like that, is like I'm very in tune with, like, when I feel like doing something, I just go and do it. And also you can see in my human design, that's what I'm built to do. There's really kind of a pretty cool setup for me personally, to where I don't have a lot of barriers to that. I don't typically get stuck in my head too much unless it's something really outside of my paradigm, but I just go and do things. So I'll try it and I'll experiment, and if it doesn't turn out, I don't care. It's like it's a part of my journey. And and even like the mistakes and the dumb things that I do have always been like something that I laugh about, and I love telling the stories because I'm not afraid of my mistakes. So that's part of it. Like for instance, I think I was like 7 years old. We had this giant haystack. My mom had 3 horses at the time, and so we had this huge haystack. It was probably, about as tall as a house. Not a tall house, but I don't want to overblow the story, but it was probably a good, I don't know, 10, 12 feet off the ground. And I decided that I wanted to climb it with a blindfold and then climb off of it with the blindfold. And so I get up there, I have the blindfold on, and I climb up, and I'm on top of the haystack, and I crawl across the top of it to the place. There's like the haystack, and then there was like a gap where there was a metal water trough that was flipped upside down. So I don't know if people have seen like a cattle watering tank, just a big metal tank. So it was flipped upside down, so it had this flat metal bottom on top. And I was crawling towards the edge and I was looking for the edge, and all of a sudden there was no edge. It was just air. And so I fell off. I hit my head first into that metal water trough and then hit the ground and just started laughing.
That's such a boy story. Yeah. It's a typically boy story.
Yeah. So, and I just, I didn't get hurt. I felt safe. I felt, I'll never do that again. But like, that's a great picture of how I live my life. And sometimes that willingness to go out and try something, you never know when it's going to completely change your life. It's kind of hard to predict, although there's a good chance that if you go and do body work with your Asimos, it's going to change your life. So I can predict that for other people. There's probably tons of other practitioners and all these different things like breath work and stuff too. It's just, try it all. I don't know.
I believe, especially for men, it's so important to get back into your body.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about this like before we pressed the record button, how especially for men, the thoughts and really like the mind.
Oh, chattering, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like a lot of like mind chattering and a lot of like thoughts and like so much programming in regards to movies, in regards of pornography, like all of those really violent, aggressive, distraction ways to really program the mind of the man to not function anymore, how the mind actually like is normally like programmed to function.
Yeah.
So I'm really wondering, what is your experience in regards to your personal thoughts?
Yeah. That word program is such a good word for that. It's like you're born with this base software, and then all these influences that come in add in little applications or windows and things, like almost like windows on a web browser. So I had the web browser open of church, and then eventually the web browser open of porn, and then the web browser open of violent movies and all this other stuff. And all of that, if you're not conscious of it, it's in there running and taking up some of your hard drive space. And it can start to affect your behavior for sure. And so my thoughts on that is that's a really important topic. It's something that I'm still going through, because these things can be deep in the subconscious and you're not really sure how they affect, and it's not just the movies and the media influences, it's also, whether it's traumatic experiences on any scale of trauma, it can be little or small or big or, memorable or something that you think would be totally not a big deal. The more you go into your subconscious and try to understand what's running there, and so you can consciously choose what to accept or not accept, the more you do that, the better, really. It can be very difficult, and it will be, I think, especially with all the trauma stuff that's been put through the media. Like my entire childhood was fairly well guarded by my mom and her values, but there was a lot, like especially the 90s, like the TV shows that my friends were watching and stuff was basically what I call now is trauma-based mind control. So that's really, there's a lot to unpack there. It's I think it's why so many people like just shut off their mind and just do what they're told, because things like that, the more instances you have of that, the less you want to like think and be your own person, and you just want to be told what to do. I think because you're just so overloaded, your circuits are sort of fried. Like when you get stressed and people are asking you tons of questions and what should I do here? What should I do here? And you can't handle it and you have to shut down. That's the same thing, but just on a deeper level, where it's harder for you to really take control of your own life and make your own authentic decisions, the more layers of junk is on top, the more things that have hurt you in the past that you haven't let go of, or that you don't recognize are still affecting you, they will kind of run their own program without you even being aware of it. So it's such a critical thing for people to look into. Body work was a great way to start with it. You know, the first time I actually heard about that was it was on Owen Benjamin's podcast. He has a friend in LA who owns a gym, and he was talking about his experience with deep tissue massage, like a Thai massage, where he had a similar thing where just someone really going deep on his tissues opened up emotional stuff, you know, helped him process some trauma and release it. So that's a similar thing. But any way you go about it, I think the more the merrier. Like, definitely try figuring it out a little bit, do some shadow work, look into that.
I'm curious to know, I mean, your intention for the bodywork session was in regards to your possible divorce with you and your wife. So what came up actually like for you when bodywork was done? Because as you just mentioned, there's a lot of trauma stored in our deep tissues, a lot of past experiences, probably not even from our current lifetimes. So it's very, very intense. And like you said, like we run our lives by being unconscious. So we better need to start looking within and to really see and to make the subconscious conscious again.
Absolutely.
So what would you say? What really came up for you, and how did it even impact your relationship and your marriage?
Yeah. Well, so by the time that I actually got out there, I had already reached the point with my wife where we were building back. It was still a long journey. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've been, kind of a fiery guy in some situations. And that was one of the first things I noticed working with Yerasimos. So I learned in the calves is kind of the area in the Chinese meridian therapy where they identify it with anger. And I can't remember all of it, but anger was definitely being held in my calves. I'm hanging out with Yerasimos, having fun. I'm in California, out in Topanga. It's beautiful. I'm like sleeping in his guest house and stuff, and I'm just like having a great time. So why am I like, as soon as he walks on my calves, all this anger came out? It wasn't like I wasn't like screaming at him and trying to like do anything crazy. It was like
knock him over.
no, like, but it's in there, and the way that we know it was in there, this is crazy for me. I've never experienced anything like this. As soon as he got down to my calves, one, it was extremely painful, and he's good at modulating it so you're not overwhelmed, but you just breathe through it. But my body heat up like all the way, my face, my arms, my back, and I started sweating, and the room got really hot, like instantly, and that heat, that angry heat, it was physically in my body. So I'm here having a great time, feeling a sense of accomplishment for even going there to do the work, because it's not likely that many people will actually do stuff like that, like from my world. So I felt a sense of accomplishment, but I'm like holding all this anger, and that was like a weird thing for me to experience, because I'm like, I'm not angry, I don't feel angry, but it's in there. So that's what I mean by the subconscious and this shadow work stuff. That is your shadow. In fact, I can't remember who said it. It might have been some other guy on YouTube I saw, but he was talking about like your body, and Yerasimos has said this too, I'm sure, but your body is your shadow, or your body is like the physical representation of your shadow, meaning your subconscious. Like what is in your subconscious will show up in your body. This is why people can look at like things like physiognomy or palm reading. Physiognomy is looking at your face and being able to read into your personality almost like an astrology chart. Like someone who's really versed in physiognomy can tell very intimate, deep things about your face, well, through your face, about your personality, your life story, all of that, because you know, we're not aware of how the body interacts with the mind on that level. I've been aware of that from my time in the Army, just by being my natural sensitive self, and holding on to that and noticing things, and kind of and being deeply introspective and thinking about things that I've noticed. I've made that connection with the body and the mind. Your subconscious literally will set your limitations, or will help you break through them.
I just would love to know, what was the reason why you felt this immense of anger in your cuffs? What came up for you?
At the time, there was no real memory connection as far as the deeper stuff. On the surface, you know, there's anger and disappointment for, you know, maybe like regret and anger at myself for the way I treated my wife when I was angry. But that's still on the surface. You know, there's anger below that.
Yeah.
Or there's things below that anger. You know, there was some anger and resentment for the ways that maybe she had treated me, but that's still surface.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until I got back home that I had some real like moments of like sobbing and like releasing pain and hurt and betrayal from you know, my teenage years. And but I feel like it definitely, I would not have had access to that if I hadn't learned how to unlock that myself. So I learned from Gerasimos about, you know, keeping the work, you know, basically using like a really hard medicine ball and laying on my back and like laying my leg on the medicine ball and like rolling it back and forth until I found a really painful spot, and then breathing into that and putting more and more pressure on it as much as I could handle. And maybe because I maybe have been a little bit emotionally guarded, even though I had a lot of rapport with them, I wasn't willing to open up and just start crying. So when I was by myself and I did that similar work, I had all these like this, at first I just hit a spot and I just started crying just for nothing. And it was deep sobs, you know. And then what I learned from Gerasimos too, is part of the body work and feeling the pain. After each iteration of a painful stimulus and breathing, you do somatic sensing. So you just feel what you're feeling. You just become aware of your body and trying to pay attention to where in your body are you feeling the emotion. And that's a really strange thing for people, like for me, but it felt natural somehow. You know, if you're like really overheated, you can feel it sometimes up in your head, or if you're sad, you can feel it in your throat. You know, there's sensations in your body that are connected to that. And so when I'm feeling this sobbing and this emotion, then I just direct my attention to where in the body it was. And it was like, as soon as I did that, right away, memories came up and thoughts came up of my first girlfriend, my daughter's mother, cheating on me when I, like before we had ever been intimate. And then this anger first at myself, because I really didn't stand up for myself back then. I was 17 and like completely abandoned myself. Just didn't allow myself to feel a whole lot, didn't know how to process it, so I didn't. And then being angry at myself for just being such a wimp, basically, you know.
I wonder where this voice coming from, like when you say being such a wimp, which voice is it?
Well, that's the angry voice, right? So that anger that was in me was like an angry, it was like there were two parts of me. Part of me that was like angry and judging myself and calling myself hurtful names, like calling me a wimp. Like, oh, you weak little, you're worthless because, your girlfriend cheated on you. You're such a loser, you're such a cuck or whatever. And so there's like this sort of your internal adversary, like judging and hurting yourself. And then there's this return anger from the part of you that was hurt and wanted to be cared for and like wanted to be, heard and healed, fighting back at the one that's calling it a wimp, right? At the part of you that's being hurtful to yourself. So it's like an internal anger from both of those angles.
But I still wonder where this voice really coming from. Like, can it be, because I can remember myself when I experienced anger within myself, the first time I went back into past memories, my mentor asked me, what voice is it? And I was like, yeah, this is my voice. This is the voice of like, my internal voice. And then it led me back to know it's actually like the voice of my teachers, the voice of society. It is the voice of like, and that's what I wanted to address about like being a wimp. Does it mean to show emotions? I wonder where is this voice coming from?
Yeah. My best guess for that, because it is a guess, would be society, because it's nothing like my family never treated me that way. I would get teased and made fun of a little bit by my brothers for being sensitive or emotional or crying. So maybe there's some influence from that as well. But there might also be, I don't know, it could be stuff picked up from media and stuff too, because that's also a way that I would look at somebody else. Mm-hmm. Like a judgmental part of me that I feel is no longer useful. But back then, or for years of my life, like I've made jokes about guys who's like, girls cheated on him and stuff, and it's like, I don't know, like there's some darkness there, and I think it could be media influence. I think there's a lot of really like just garbage around that whole topic and throughout all the media, and they try to make it funny. They try to make it like sitcoms, but it's pretty damaging. It's like a topic like that, like it's such a, I don't know, I feel like it's not really natural for people to do that kind of hurt to each other. It's always like with her, I don't have as much animosity. I feel like it's still tender, but I let go of a lot of it because I understand that she grew up with a very, very difficult situation. That's not a natural thing for a woman to do to her man. And it comes from a place of being traumatized for her. And I can have empathy with that and see that. So the same thing of like you hurting yourself with like this harsh self-talk comes from a place of maybe feeling traumatized or not, because it's not natural. So you're not naturally going to think up the best response to it or any response, which is why I froze, which is why I didn't know what to do. And I just kind of shut down emotionally and wouldn't let myself feel. And so without having a plan, without having a really fully defined sense of who I was and what I believed, something jumped in from either a TV show that I watched or a movie that I watched, some other point of view on the situation. And then I just regurgitated that at myself. And then it didn't feel good. So I held this resentment against myself for not being better to me, So it was like, yeah, I think it really was something from media. I can't pinpoint, but I'm sure it's in the body. Like that's what I learned through all this stuff too. The more I work and breathe and let these feelings kind of come up and thoughts come up, you'll have memories just pop up and be like, oh, that's what it was. And then you can let it go, which is it's really a beautiful process too, when you realize that you have the ability, you've always had this ability to heal yourself. And, on deep levels. Sometimes for sure we need help. Sometimes we definitely need someone to guide us and show us how to do these things. And then once you learn the skills, you can go and find the answers.
Yeah. And especially like what you said, making the unconscious conscious, like really like moving the memories into your conscious being so you can actually let go. And sometimes we need to let go many times because the pain or the hurt or whatsoever was so hurtful and deep that it affected us on a very deep level. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the saying goes, like, healing is not linear. So we are always invited to really come back into a place where we be and to fully accept and also embrace the stuff that wants to come out.
Yeah.
That's and really so important. And I totally like, I empathize with you in regards to the betrayal, like you mentioned, it's not a natural thing for a woman to do. I mean, it's true. It's not a natural like thing for us to do it in any kind of way, to harm each other. Mm-hmm. But my spiritual belief is that we choose different experiences in order to learn from them and in order to really establish within us boundaries and also establish an understanding about our own emotions. And I'm wondering, what was for you the biggest lesson that you learned on this path for your heart?
Yeah. Well, that's probably what you just said. Like it's these things happen for a reason. Sometimes, like the concept of us choosing it, like I've heard this from other people, the concept of us choosing like our struggles and hardships before we enter our bodies as a baby. Mm. I could see that. I could see there's a possibility. There's no way to really know. But you can look back and you can see how the dominoes were lined up so perfectly. So if that hadn't have happened, or if I had responded differently, if I had a fully developed ability to like set clear boundaries and just say, I'm not okay with that, goodbye, see you later, my daughter never would have been born. Mm-hmm. And I look at the way that she was born, it was like she had to be, it was in the divine plan. Like I can't deny that. And at 17, I had gotten her pregnant. I kind of put aside my feelings about what had happened. And on one level, that was the honorable thing to do. So I look back now and I look at myself and I'm like a big lesson that I learned is don't hold on to judgment for yourself. Like look at it kind of like as an outsider. And what can you learn from it? Did you do good? What did you do well? Okay, honor yourself for what you did well. What could you have improved on? What could have you done better? Mm-hmm. And now I look at that, I'm like, well, I would start with feeling and letting myself recognize those feelings and let it come out and let me express it and connect to it. Instead of trying to be a man and not cry and all that stuff, it's like, that's not helpful. It really isn't. All that does is it takes it from where you can actually deal with it and see it and integrate lessons from it. And then you shove it into the subconscious, it literally into your body, and it holds it there. And then it runs its program behind the scenes, messing with you until you deal with it. So that lesson right there was just a powerful observation when I could detach from the emotion of it a little bit, just to kind of see what my reaction was, what happened, just as almost like a reporter reporting the details of an event that happened, a robbery, and all the time and date and details. And then I can see I didn't deal with the emotion. I didn't integrate it. I rejected it, so it went into my body, and then it played out as a trauma. But now I see how to deal with an emotion like that, and how something that very, very shocking, very hurtful, later on you can see the purpose of it, and it can have some empathy for both sides, but you're also developing a relationship with yourself to where you have trust for yourself. And that's what I missed in that time then, but that's what I'm rebuilding now, is like, okay, this response that I had to like quickly, maybe too quickly in the moment, forgive and move forward, that allowed my daughter to be brought into the world, And then at that young age, that's in this particular society is a young age. Ages past, that would have been, the right age for, probably old for people to start having children, 17, 18, they're like, oh, you better hurry up and have 5 more kids. But for that time period, it was really early, especially growing up as a Christian, at 18, having a daughter. But without that, I wouldn't have gone into the military. I wouldn't have really stood into my manhood at an early age like that, and took responsibility for my daughter, and started focusing on all the things that I now had to think about. What kind of role model do I want to be? What kind of life do I want to build? What do I really want in life? Like, all these questions started coming up because of that instance. This was definitely a divine purpose. I could see that right away from the beginning. I felt connected to the creator, from the generator of all life, that this was a purpose. And so now I'm on a spiritual path at that age. And I'm going out every night, like looking at the moon, and like feeling energies, and feeling like, there's a purpose here, and just seeking it, and just knowing that purpose was there. So now, hindsight on that whole scenario, I can actually have gratitude for it, which is a big turnaround for that.
It's
it
beautiful.
was hard, but it has beauty. There is beauty in that.
Yes, and especially I love what you say, and it takes an immense kind of growth and personal maturity to look on those situations with such a inner wisdom and inner compassion for yourself. Because sometimes we need situations and circumstances in our lives who really shake us up to our core, to actually remind ourselves from where we are from. And what you said, that you needed basically that in order to understand, okay, here is right now in a remembrance what comes with my heart, because I know this is a greater purpose, and I know I want to give birth to my daughter, and now I can see it from a place of gratitude. And okay, I learned my lesson, and I'm now dealing and integrating all of my emotions. It's very impactful.
Yeah, and it's still ongoing. This is a process. It's a way of living now. I was unconscious about a lot of this stuff for years and years afterwards, but I was initiated on the journey, and that led me, like all of us have this path where it's like, A goes to B, goes to C. You look back through your life and you can see there's just a purpose, and it's so important to hold on to that and honor that. And if you feel lost, just try to find a way to go back and connect to your purpose, because it's always there. It's like a laser beam, it's there somewhere. If you can get back in alignment with it and move, or not move, it doesn't have to be constant movement. You can be at peace, you can be at rest, and then move. So but just know that there is a purpose, and it's really undeniable. Like I think my creator for putting me in this family, where your divine purpose was always accepted. It was like a given. Every one of us has a purpose. Because that, I think, helped save me some time and probably some pain of feeling like, what's the word? Like nihilistic, like there is no purpose, there's no meaning, it's all chaos and darkness and just get what you can. Like if I would have gone down that road, it would have been a totally different experience for my daughter. She'd be a totally different person. And my life would be way different. But just knowing that there's a divine purpose, and as bad as things get, you can always go back to a place where you can be calm and remember and just have some faith that, it's not that what happened to you that was hard and bad, it's not that God or the universe wants you to be hurt like that, but it's in spite of that, you're never disconnected from your purpose. It's always there.
I have 2 questions for you. How did you find your purpose, or what is your purpose, and how did you remember it? Not find, like how did you remember your purpose?
Yeah. Because for a lot of my life, it was like, there's the purpose, and I can feel when I'm moving towards it, but I didn't really know what it was. I thought I knew, I thought I was like going into the military. I thought I was learning the skills to survive some kind of apocalypse in the future. Like that's a weird thing for like an 18-year-old to think. Maybe not weird, I don't know, but like it was very specific for me. Yeah. But like, my other teammates in the military were, they wanted to go fight Al-Qaeda and stuff like that. And I'm like, no. Al-Qaeda is they're just practice for the real stuff that's coming in the, I didn't even know. I was just like, something's coming in the future. But so I wasn't always certain and couldn't always just say like, this is my ultimate purpose. I feel like that for me has been a very difficult thing to hold on to. And I'm understanding now more because of my unique way of being is like, a central guide stone for my purpose is to follow what brings me alive, to move towards that. If it scares me, but I really want to do it, like go towards it even more and learn to trust, to learn to be free. So for me, in a way, like that freedom is my purpose. And then what that brings, because I think some people are different, where they can think and they can feel and know that their purpose is to do this, and this because of this. And for me, it's not that specific. It's like, be free and then do all that you can do. And so I do that. And then I can see, like when I started a handyman business, that inspired and affected a friend of mine, and he started his own business, So in a way, I'm starting to see my purpose is to like just bump into a bunch of different things, and it activates different things. It's not because of me, because I'm not taking, like a big ego about it. Like, oh yeah, you wouldn't have been anything without. No, it's like my purpose is to just kind of bump into things and shift things around. And I just connected to that and can kind of recognize that by looking back and seeing a pattern. And also, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is like getting more into your heart and realizing, one, that the heart's really important. And then the more you're in there and you can feel what makes you come alive, just getting acquainted with yourself. The purpose is, it's tied to the heart. It's tied to being connected with that. Because I wanted to talk about AAR. Because
yes,
one of the parts of your early question was how did I find my purpose, and that'll tie into what I'll get to in a second. But yeah, I just wanted to just kind of back up what you were saying and just agree, like, being in your heart, if you're really fully embodying that, it's like, I'm sure a lot of your listeners will agree with the vocabulary, with vibrations and that kind of way of describing things. But when you're in that vibration, it's really hard for something discordant from that to come in because it's so strong. It's your center. It's really the center of this vortex, right? Like, and I learned all this stuff from my wife, and it's really cool how it syncs up with like what the Heart Math Institute has been putting out too. But your heart is like the center of this vortex, and in an electromagnetic field, it makes this torus. That's what your aura and all this stuff is. It's part of that torus field of your body's energy, and it's physical. It's like a literal thing. It's not just an imaginary woo-woo thing for people that are skeptical about this kind of idea. You can measure it and feel it, and other people can sense it. You can, you for sure, for instance, are very aware of this. And when you're really connected to this part of it, it's like that energy is so strong. Lies and manipulations and these other frequencies, these other like discordant vibrations can't really just come in and affect that, because it's so strong. And so you'll be able to feel it when it's wrong, and reject what you need to reject, and resonate with what resonates. That's why people say that so much. It's, oh, I resonate with that. So when you're in your heart center, you're closer to finding, well, you're at peace. You're just in truth, like you're just there. It's almost like a physical place. It'll be easier to see. And the more that people disconnect from their heart and get more up into their headspace, or disconnect from it altogether and just go automaton with whatever media influences they take in, it gets harder. It's like you're in the jungle now. So, but to get back to what I was thinking about with AAR and how do you find your purpose, this idea came to me while you were talking. And in the Army, we called it an after action review, AAR. So after you did a training cycle of like, let's say we're practicing ambushes out in the woods, and you navigate map and compass to a road, to a very specific point in the road. You set up, you physically put men in positions, and then tell them, what the signal is. When I give the signal, we're all going to attack. It's just organizing an event. And in this case, an event is an ambush. You do the ambush, you go through, you do all the stuff that you're trained to do. And then at some point they call index, meaning end exercise. And then you get in a circle, and then you just review what happened. And you talk from everyone's perspective. You kind of go linearly. Like, at first we did this, and then we did this, and then the next person sees it from their perspective and they say this. So you kind of like lay things out in a timeline, and you just review it. And then at the end of it, you say what went wrong, and then how you can do it better, what went right, and what you'll do again. It's pretty simple stuff, but I forget that these organized tools, these very masculine frames of thinking and behaving, can be really helpful when going through or dealing with hard emotions. So those emotions, those hard instances in our lives, all serve a purpose. And I feel strongly that if you go back and do that AAR with yourself, what did you do right? What did you mess up on? What could you improve? And you include that piece about the heart and the emotion, like, what was I feeling? And you can go back to that exact time period in your body, and you can feel, and you should be able to, I think you probably will notice that your body will feel emotion somewhere specific. Just getting into your body and connecting to your heart like that, the more you do that, the more you're going to start resonating with that heart frequency, which will make it harder for things that are untrue or that are trying to push you off of your path. So by creating that habit, you're creating the habit of being able to stay on the path before you even know what it is sometimes. And if you're someone that's more in tune with yourself and you're very connected to where being on your path will manifest in something specific like art or, you know, building something or whatever, that'll just kind of naturally come out. But just knowing that you're connecting to your heart, which is where your purpose is going to start from, you'll find it that way. So for men especially that aren't, you know, maybe this isn't easy for them to understand. I don't know if I'm describing it the best way, but essentially develop the habit of going back to a moment, a tragedy, a mistake you made that you've gone over, feel in your body the emotions that you felt during that time period, and let that come up, and then review, like, what did you do right? Feel good about that. What did you do wrong? Don't be too hard on yourself, but choose a better way. But just being connected to the heart like that, like, I'll just to repeat it one more time, is so important. If you feel like you haven't found your path or you've gotten off the path somehow, that's the place to start. It's like a beacon, you know, it's like a buoy or a lighthouse. You know, it's something that's set up, that's always there. And if you can just find your way back to it, then just start from there, and then you'll be on the path again.
It's beautiful, Isaac. You done an amazing job to describe that.
Thank you.
Really, thank you so much for that, because it's so important to have men here to give other men fundamental praxis and knowledge how they can tune into their heart space, because I know it's so, like, the heart space and our intuition, it's different for men to reach, because they're like, so, like, the relationship between masculine and feminine is like separate since the beginning of, like, your mom gave birth to you. And
right.
So I'm wondering in this regards, you know, like, because we were talking about this earlier in our pre-conversation about, like, how grateful, impactful it is, and it was, for you to feel the feminine energy within you again, and what truly shifted after also you came out of the army. Because there's, like, two topics that really I want to really bring home in a more deeper way. And the first topic is your relationship to your feminine energy, and also how it impacted you and the relationship and your marriage. Because it's still, like, I can remember the first question was your intention to have body work in regards to your, like, divorce, like you're actually wanting to go to divorce. But after you experience body work, and after you are reconnected in a more deeper way to your heart, I want to understand what shifted within you, in yourself and in your marriage.
Yeah. Well, to kind of give people a bit of an idea of things that I'm very recently coming into context of is, and maybe your listeners that understand astrology will know exactly. You probably know tons more when I say this, but so my moon is in Gemini.
Give me a little insight about your moon is in Gemini. What is your sun?
My sun's Cancer. My moon is opposed by Saturn, and my Venus is in my 12th house. I know that. But yeah, my moon is opposed by Saturn. So that opposition has been struggling. And not only that, but, like, me being a Cancer and wanting to feel nurtured, wanting to feel I don't know, all the cancer stuff, you know, you're more aware of the stuff than I am, but like wanting to feel a good interaction with the feminine, really, to feel accepted by it, I guess. But because my moon is opposed, so moon represents feminine in my relationship chart. I think that represents my wife, which is the moon. That being opposed Saturn. Saturn is like structure. You know, Saturn is like, you know, we would talk about different religions as Saturnian religions, you know, like it's a structured sort of disciplinarian sort of thing. And when I look at the way that it's opposite of like moon's over here, for people that don't know astrology, Saturn is over here. So they're kind of butting heads in a way, but they also can directly see each other. So they can look at each other and sort of see each other directly. And I feel like that helped me being in the military. It was more natural for me to hold on to a connection to that feminine in the military because they're eye to eye. You know, they see each other. But my sense is that kind of helped me to hold on to that, because I still maintained like the more sensitive side. In the military, my purpose was strongly connected to my daughter, to leaving a legacy for her, to be a strong, powerful protector for her. So a protector of the feminine, protector of my daughter. So it was like, it synced up for me to where the military actually helped me. It was also, the conditioning didn't always help, because the conditioning also conditioned me to be very like aggressive. When you're fighting a battle, you want to be as aggressive as you can be, as violent as you can be. When you're in a relationship with women, like the emotions can trigger similar reactions. And so you're like feeling like you're constantly having to like step on the brakes so you don't like go over the edge and become violent and aggressive like that. And I feel like I've had a pretty good handle on it. And, you know, until recently, I've gotten a bit more like, you know, having to struggle controlling my anger and yelling and stuff, until I started to uncover those past wounds that marriages can seem to bring up and help you heal in kind of a hard but beautiful way. But yeah, so the military for me, in a way, kind of fostered and made it necessary for me to understand my sensitivities even more, because it actually helped me. And I don't know if it's accurate to really equate or connect sensitivity to the feminine. You can correct me if that's kind of just confusing or something. But I remember I was telling you a little bit about that with some instances I had when I was shooting, and I was able to, we were shooting with night vision. And I'll just tell the story real quick and
yes,
try
please.
to get back on track with your question. But like, the sensitivity was so important and fun. It was like, I had a night vision shooting exercise, and our night vision wasn't working very well. And they had 30 or so targets that would come up. It's pitch black, and we have night vision, and our rifles have lasers. And you're supposed to be able to see the laser. You point the laser at the ground, and then you walk it up to your target. And then when it hits the target, it's supposed to light up the target, and you can see it, and then you shoot it. Except none of that was working. I couldn't see the laser on the ground. I couldn't see the laser when it hit the target. I couldn't see the target light up, but I could feel something. It was just weird. I was so focused. I was so like in tune with the body. It was very meditative for me, because I'm like, it's pitch black. There's no distractions except gunfire, which I was trained to like sort of ignore when I needed to. And so I can feel target pop. I couldn't even see the targets come up when they moved, obviously. So they would pop up, and then you'd shoot them and they'd fall down. So I could feel when something came up, and I would shoot, and it would go down. And at the end of it, there was like three out of, I don't know, 80 or so people that passed it we shot 20 some of the targets. Everyone else had like missed all of them. So I don't know if those other guys were experiencing something similar, where you're literally like, you're feeling where to shoot, but it's like you're focus your energy so much, but being in tune with your body, being in tune with whatever sense that is. I feel like the military gave me an opportunity to expand into that. And that's also probably partially due to my Jupiter in my chart, which happens to be my Atmakarka in my relationship chart. My self-identity as Jupiter, the expansion. But we were talking about connection to the feminine. I think really the big part of it for me was having a daughter and wanting to protect, feeling very natural in that state. And then being a Cancer, that was like my form of being nurturing. I'm not a super nurturing kind of Cancer person as a male. That part doesn't come super naturally to me, but like I definitely wanted to keep her protected, keep her out of harm's way, keep her in a soft, gentle environment to where she could just naturally bloom and grow. So having a daughter for me definitely helped me stay within, thinking about what does a girl think about? What does a girl want or need? Or, she's growing. I'm like always constantly thinking about what would be good for her. And not always getting it right, being a military dad. It's, she learned some cool skills. She learned how to shoot and do martial arts and stuff. But like as well as like my Venus in my 12th house, like I've had, relationships, had, like I said, porn addiction and that sort of fascination with the feminine, it's just always been kind of a draw for me. So out of curiosity, I had lots of friends that were girls in high school. So just always, just curious about what's going on with women, what's going on in their minds, and feeling natural and calm in that state, not super awkward or weird around a lot of women. So I don't know, like I feel like that whole question kind of revolves around my chart, because I'm like, it just, some of it came naturally. Some of these connections to the feminine externally were natural. And so in a way, I was more at ease with it internally. There's definitely more to grow into. And I think being at that festival, the Music and Sky Festival, and then talking to you and looking a little deeper at it, I can definitely tell that there's more room, there's more of a need to create more harmony and balance within myself, within the yin and yang, or yang, or however they say it. I'm new to all this stuff, but it makes so much sense now that I'm like starting to understand it. There is such a need to maintain a connection to that within yourself, to balance it and understand it as a man, because it's going to affect your marriage. And I can say that with 100% certainty. Like if you have resentment as a man for your softer side, if you have resentment for your feminine, that will show up immediately in your marriage or any relationship with some of these women. You'll have resentment for them. You'll fight against them. You'll not, because you're not accepting that part of yourself. So why would you accept a really healthy dose of that really close to you all the time? So it's important to like set that, I think, as a priority to understand it, to have balance, and to accept it. And that's something that I'm stepping further into now. So I'm, like I said, I'm new to all this. So
Isaac, you're not really new to that, because it's all a remembrance that you have already within your heart, and the way you describe it and the way you share your deepest thoughts and emotions with us, and for yourself and with yourself, is like really empowering for so many of us, like especially also for the feminine, because for me as a feminine, I like, and I told you this also at Music and Sky, like me listening to you and your experiences, and also seeing you in the breathwork session, like really seeing the trauma that got stored within your body, and you handling it like a man, like really feeling it and breathing into those emotions. And it was very uncomfortable because I could feel your pain.
Yeah.
But you were able to hold it, you were able to feel into it, and you were able to release it. And for me, this is such pure healing that I witnessed there, and that I also witnessed today in our conversation. And for that, I'm beyond grateful. I'm really beyond grateful.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely grateful as well. And that was a lot of new experiences all at once. So I'm just like, I'm still really, truly still integrating some of that. Because the healing, I feel like it wasn't immediate. You know, it brought this stuff to the surface, and it's still a process of like, you know, it's still like some of these wounds that haven't been healed, they've just been covered over, and it's almost like a festering like infection. So the longer it goes, the more time it can take sometimes to release and let go of. And you might have to do it several times, like you mentioned earlier. Like you can let go, and then memories can come back. You can reattach to those energies if you have a habit of doing that. And but knowing that it's possible, knowing that you did let go of part of it, you know, there might be other aspects of it, you know, that you become aware of. And I really am like deeply grateful for that process. As painful as it's been, like in my marriage and stuff, I can see it now. It's like, it's been hard for me, you know, it's been hard for my wife, especially. You know, she's much more sensitive, and but these hardships lead directly to something that can be healed. It's almost like it's a spotlight that gets shown, or like what we'd call in the army, we'd call it recon by fire. So like they used to in Vietnam, they would fly over the jungle and then wait to get shot at. And then whenever they started getting shot at, they knew that that's where the enemy was. So,
oh wow,
you know, you're taking flack. You go through life, and in your marriage, when you start having these conflict, when this like deep wounds sometimes can come up, and you have these big blow-ups, and it can be really scary. It can be really damaging. But the gem that's in there is that's letting you know what you're ready to start. You got to heal that. You know, it's really important to stay patient with each other and stay connected to the ability to forgive. Stay within your heart. If you were brought together for a purpose, stay with that and trust that, because it's not easy. But if you're both committed to like this process, and it can be the same thing with children too, I'm sure. But like, if you have these conflicts, that shows you, it's kind of like getting flack over the target. If you're willing to, like I said, go into your heart, feel what you need to feel, be connected to your body, that will lead you to your path. And just be willing to shift, to allow changes to take place, to allow yourself to feel it and let go. Because when you feel it, when it comes up and you actually face it, and you release it, it's not trapped in your body anymore. It's not going to still run its program without your knowing it. It's not going to keep it might feel like it will keep happening. Like if you have a pattern of conflict in a marriage or something like that, it'll feel like it's going to keep going. But that's only true if you hold on to that. If you let go of trying to control how the other person reacts, if you let go of you know, the bitterness and the resentment from past hurts and all that, if you let go, it'll change. And the conflict will show you what you need to let go of.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Isaac. Really, really thank you. Before I'm going to ask you my last question, I want to ask you, when you tune into your heart right now, is there anything that you feel that you want to share? Is there anything for you important to express today?
Yeah, the most important thing for me in this current moment is to just feel and express gratitude, because that's really just where I'm at. Like I've been, and so people can kind of identify, like been struggling, recently with conflict, and like still this like dynamic of like, you know, this is never going to get any better, and there's fear, and it's so hard. But each time it's like a ratchet, it just takes me, if I'm allowing it to move me, it takes me one step closer to knowing it's hard, but it's healing. It's part of the shadow work. It's part of when you go back and dig up the past, but you do it in a careful way, it still can be hard. And so I'm grateful that I've met people like you specifically, not only the work that you're doing, but and the time, and like being courageous and taking action and doing the podcast and the YouTube, and your years of experience, and then your heart and your intuition and all that, providing a place for conversations like this to happen, and allowing me to come in and encouraging me to open up. I feel like that it's really grounding for me. I know it's going to be grounding for a lot of other men, and maybe and women as well, like seeing that there's a process, that there's a way from to be able to connect to your heart, to be able to balance with the feminine, and that will allow healing to take place within the heart of the masculine. I'm just so grateful for this realization and this ability to do this, and I know my wife is too, because we both have a strong sense that we have a big purpose to play out here, and everybody truly does. But these things have been holding us back, and it's really important for us to heal and move on, and to carry our head high, and to learn. It's like remembering, like you said earlier, I'm not really new to this, it's just I'm remembering. And so we need to remember that these answers are in there, they'll come. Hold your head high and move forward. And I'm just so grateful to be in this place in my life right now, because that is the path for me. Like it's for all of us healing. It's been a crazy past couple of years. A lot of us have had losses in families on multiple levels, whether it's death or whether it's just ideologies separate and people won't talk to you anymore and stuff like that. But on a macro level, I think we're all moving towards a good place, even with the difficulties. So I'm just grateful that realization is something that I can hold on to and encourage others that have faith. Have faith with your divine creator, if you believe in one. Have faith in yourself that you'll find a way. Like there's always a way. It's within you. You have the answers. It's just you had to remember and have courage and move forward.
And in the end, every man is a unique expression of the divine masculine. Every man, every woman has their purpose, and it's on us to also ask for help if we struggle to remember. Hearing you saying those things is expanding my heart and per se on a very deep emotional level. And for that, I'm grateful.
Yeah.
What would you say? I have two questions. The first question is, what is masculinity for you?
Yeah. I'm just going to say it the way I feel it without even stopping to say,
yes,
to apologize for any of it. That's moving from your heart courageously, acting from your nature, but in like that connection to the divine masculine. Like if your nature is to protect, if your nature is to build, if your nature is to grow stuff and farm, like masculinity is built within you, and it'll come out naturally if you just let it. So it's more expansive than anything in the media, any movie, it's more expansive than most people really understand or accept. It's not just, testosterone and shooting guns and kicking in doors, or like on the military side. Like, that's pretty masculine, but also holding my daughter and like teaching her to walk, that's masculine. Helping my parents fix things around their house as they get older, that's masculine. And also crying through hardship and just letting yourself feel like hurt when you're hurt. Having the courage to be vulnerable, to be willing to be hurt. Just being willing to step out, it's like, people can go back to that movie Braveheart, where he's lying on the table, he's saying what he wants to say as they're hurting him. It's like, that's pretty masculine. Like, you're opening yourself up. That's literally the definition of vulnerable, is to be hurt, is to be willing or to be able to be hurt. So being vulnerable, being that brave to just be like, I'm going to trust, I'm going to love, I'm going to have a family, I'm going to pour my heart into this project, into this farm, into this building, into my house, into whatever you're passionate about. Being willing to pour yourself into that, and it might come crashing down, it might not work out or whatever, but just being willing to move, regardless of if you'll get hurt or not. To me, that's really masculine. So, and there's probably tons more that I could say about it, but that feels like enough.
This is something I really wanna ask before we close. So first of all, like, I have two questions. Prepare yourself to have like two questions. The first question is, after everything that you experienced right now in your current life, from the birth to your daughter, to your marriage, to being in the army, to open yourself up, to remembering who you are, what was the most difficult emotion that you needed to deal with? And how did you overcome it?
Are those the two questions?
Funny.
Yeah, the most difficult one, man. So for people to understand, like initially, because my habit is to say, oh, anger. But anger is always a secondary emotion. There's something under it. So now I have to think of the times that I've been angry, when it's been hard to shift it and regulate or down-regulate my level of switched on in my brain. Was it emotional pain? Was it sadness?
What does your heart feel? That's my favorite question. Like when you close your eyes for a second right now.
Mm-hmm.
Close your eyes.
Yeah.
And really give yourself the permission to feel into your heart. And to really breathe also into your heart. Getting out of the mind and into your heart space.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out what's the right word for this. It's like when you make yourself vulnerable, mm-hmm. and someone intentionally or unintentionally wounds you, so you're feeling hurt. It's not really betrayal, but it's like you made yourself vulnerable and you got hurt.
Yeah.
That particular emotion has been the hardest for me to overcome. And the surface, it comes out as anger, because I'm like, now I'm protecting myself, but it's like,
yeah,
like I'm hurt, so that probably for sure is probably, I think that's the word. I'm kind of jumbling around there, but yeah, hurt, emotionally, like wounded. That emotion is hard because it goes right to the core of like my sensitivities, and in the past my vulnerabilities, or my like my weaknesses, or my yeah, it's just, it cuts deep. It cuts the deepest in a way. And the other part of your question was, how did I deal with it, or how do I deal with it, or
What did you learn from it also?
what did I learn from it?
You know, because in the end, all of our emotions are teaching emotions, and we can always learn from them. So what did you learn from it?
Well, what's really key, and this goes back to the opening part about the somatics and the body work. I don't think I use the word somatics as much, but that's a really big key. Like what we just did was going into your heart, you know, and I was connecting with my body and feeling where it was, and that kind of helped me identify a word or a story to it. Like a vision popped up of, you know, of me being like this and being wounded. Like that's the emotion. So that, just being able to do that is one of the things that I learned from it, because I got locked away a lot of this stuff because it hurt so much. I just wouldn't connect to it. So learning by it being there and causing problems in my life, and me recognizing negative patterns that I had, that's why I sought out Yerasimos and learned from him about the body work, and through that the somatic sensing and being connected to yourself. So that specifically, just knowing to connect to your body and know where to feel in your emotions, is one of the things that I would say that I learned. But then on top of that is, it's like you can be okay even if you're wounded. Someone hurt you, they didn't mean to all the time. Sometimes it feels you react the same way that you would if somebody meant to hurt you, you know? So, but if you stop and slow down and you realize, okay, did they mean to do this, or are they just bumping into me in life? And to learn that either way, like, you can be okay. You can allow the hurt and the pain and the anger, you can allow it. Don't rush to act it out and say all the stuff that comes up, but just feel it, and feel it in your body and know it, and just be okay. Like, you're okay. You're feeling something natural. It's God-given. It's designed to teach you stuff. And that one of those things that it can teach you is that, like, just breathe, man. Like, just breathe. And I'm telling myself this, like, now in this moment, because I deal with this sometimes, not every day, but sometimes it's worse than others, where I'm still hurt and kind of protecting myself, and then I'll get like hit again, and you just got to keep going. Like, just trust, just know, just breathe and feel it, and just know, like, just be okay with yourself. Just let yourself feel hurt and know that you'll be okay, even if it hurts. It's not right. It doesn't justify what they did or anything, but it's kind of a responsibility of yours to get to that point, because if you don't, and you keep acting out and projecting it outward, it's all their fault. They're the ones, they need to pay. Like, that kind of stuff ain't helpful. And it's really going to do you more damage. So learn to connect with that and just breathe through it and be okay. You know, and there's probably other more nuanced ways to go about that, depending on the situation. You know, ways that can be much more helpful, much more caring and stuff. But that's a big lesson for me to learn, because it's, yeah, like, this stuff is real. This stuff is really stuff that I'm learning, and so grateful that I came into contact. But very recently, I've had to deal with that, where I'm like having a hard time, like, controlling myself, and I'm like shaking and stuff, and I'm like, so angry. Why am I angry? And it's like, because you were hurt. Yeah. And it's okay. Like, it's not okay that they hurt you, but you're going to be okay. Yeah. So I'm learning to talk to myself that way and be more aware and patient and accepting of that, because you're built this way. Like, there's a reason for it. You know, and part of that is just being able to weather the storm. It actually gives you and this is another extension, a little bonus answer to your question, is when you can do that, you're more capable of handling like for men, if you want to be more connected to your warrior or connected to the farmer, like if you want to handle man stuff, the big chaos, the big, your crops are burning down and you need to figure out what to do right now. Or like I was a special operations combat medic, and like if you want to be more in touch with someone's bleeding out in front of you and people are freaking out and bombs are going off, to find calm in that moment and actually save a life, if you want to improve your ability to do that, you have to be able to find peace, especially in those moments where you're really hurt. And it's not done by denying it. It's done by kind of just very bravely looking at yourself and just being like, I see you. And that will help with so many areas in your life you can't even imagine. You're not even ready for all those things in your life that are going to start improving if you can learn this, if you can work on this. And I'm excited to see how it changes and grows. So
yeah. And with that being said, Isaac, I think this is like the perfect ending to a very deep and profound first episode. And I'm surely you won't be the last time here. I really make sure of it.
Absolutely.
I really enjoy our conversations, and I can go on for so much longer. But for now, I also want to give space to really like integrate all of that. And there was a lot of like deep layers of emotions and origins that we touched today. So thank you for giving me and us the time and the space to have a deeper understanding in your heart and your psyche and your thoughts and your body and everything what is like going on inside of you.
Yeah. Well, I feel really blessed and grateful for the chance to share all that. I would definitely look forward to coming back on at some point, and when I get my show up and running, I'll extend an invitation to you, and we'll dive into you have so many things you could talk about that would be so helpful from people from my perspective that are new to all this stuff. And I'm still grateful for guides like you, for your Osmos and everyone that I met at Music and Sky, and everyone I will meet, because it's like I said, I'm not the master, I'm not the teacher, but for some reason, like when we talk, it's pretty cool. Like we can like you ask really good questions, and I feel naturally able to like communicate that, and I hope that it's helping people. I know it feels helpful for me to get it out too, because it helps me integrate it better. So thank you for allowing me to come on and talk about it.
Thank you so much, Isaac. So much love for you. Thank you for listening to today's episode on Masculinity Now with Arabella Tornau. And thank you for your interest in your heart. If you like this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe, so more people who can benefit from it can be reached. Take care, and we hear us soon.